Hello, buddy. What a nice day.
Morning. Good.
Well, listen, we had a very good meeting with the President, the Secretary of the Treasury, and Larry Summers and others who are very interested. Obviously, a great day yesterday for the country, the signing of the health care bill. And the President wants to move quickly, if we can, on financial reform. And both Chairman Franks and I have been working over the last year and a half on these matters. We finished, as you know, the Banking Committee bill on Monday in a rather expedited markup. I had offered, obviously, my colleagues to offer amendments if they wanted to on that matter, and they decided to defer and not offer any amendments until we get to the floor. The door is still open. I'm sure more than willing. Senator Shelby and I have talked and see what ideas they can bring to the table. We intend to get a strong financial reform package. We're going to end too big to fail. And never again are American taxpayers going to be asked to bail out a failing financial institution because they have an implicit guarantee from the federal government. We're going to have a strong consumer protection agency so that people can count on someone watching out for their interests on mortgages and credit cards and other financial activities. We want to have that systemic risk council so we have a good radar system to pick up problems before they challenge and threaten the entire financial system in our country. We want strong statements and strong regulations on dealing with exotic instruments like over-the-counter derivatives and others that can put our system at risk. There's a lot more in these proposals. Barney and I are going to work very closely together in the coming days to try and harmonize where we can our proposals, so to minimize a conference when it occurs, if necessary. And I'm confident we can get a bill. I think the American people expect us to address the largest and most significant financial crisis since the Great Depression, caused by a collapse in our financial system, either because regulators didn't do their job or there were no cops on the beat at all, and certainly in unregulated activities that contributed to this mess. So I'm very hopeful, in light of our conversations over the last number of days, that we can have a good, strong bill on the floor of the United States Senate within the next month, and then to work with Barney, obviously, during that process, and if necessary afterwards, to give a bill to the President of the United States and have a bill signing ceremony before this Congress adjourns.
I very much agree. One of the things that people should note is if you look at two major pieces, a House and the Senate version of a major piece of legislation, we're closer on this set of rules than we usually are. And that's not an accident. We've been working, both of us, with the Obama administration, with their financial team, and the basics are there, ending too big to fail. You go back to the problems of AIG and Lehman Brothers, we've dealt with most of those. One of the problems was in 2008, the administration, according to the Bush people, felt they had only two choices in case of trouble. They could pay none of the debts or all of the debts. So you had the opposite reaction with Lehman Brothers and AIG. We've resolved that. As I've said, there are going to be death panels enacted by the Congress this year, but they're death panels for large financial institutions that can't make it. We're going to put them to death, and we're not going to do very much for their heirs. We will do the minimum that's needed to keep this from spiraling into a broader problem. There are a couple of areas of difference, but they are within, I think, reach. I am obviously committed to a very strong, independent consumer agency that can't be overruled on policy grounds and has full reach. There are some areas where I, frankly, would be delighted if the Senate can kind of improve on us. I was not fully happy with our bill on derivatives. I was on the losing side of a couple of votes on the floor. One thing that I think is different now, and at least in the House, and I hope it'll be different in the Senate, but in the House it became partisan, not because we wanted it to be, but because the Republicans made it that way. And with the discipline that the conservative Republicans were able to influence, on the last vote in the House, before passage, the last amendment, every single Republican voted to kill every single form of reform. Not amend it, not fix it. That makes it hard to work together. I hope we can get better in the Senate. But I will say this, here's the difference that makes me optimistic. When we were doing this bill last year, health care was the number one issue on the agenda. There were other important issues on the agenda, whether or not to send the troops to Afghanistan. When we come back from recess, the number one issue before the U.S. Congress will be this bill in the United States Senate. And with Senator Dodd's leadership, and I know, I look at the bill that he himself did, I know what he wants to do. Obviously, there will be some opposition. There are a lot of people lobbying against it. Some of the Republicans are promising the financial community they'll kill this thing. But I believe we will get a very good bill out of here, especially, and I think this is important, this is now the number one issue that the American public is going to be focusing on, and on every single issue in contention, I think we benefit from that.
Senator Dodd, do you expect to get this bill passed on Memorial Day?
Well, the leader has said he'd like to do that, and I'm always careful about setting target dates, and my hope would be even before then, if possible. And let me just underscore what Barney has said. And I've had some very positive initial conversations with Richard Shelby, the ranking Republican of the Banking Committee, over the last 24, 48 hours. Bob Corker has been willing to work on these matters, and others. I know there are Republicans I serve with in the Senate who frankly don't want to just say no policy when it comes to major legislative initiatives. And they would like to be part of this debate and offer constructive ideas to this proposal. So I'm much more optimistic in light of what happened on health care. I think health care, frankly, the outcome there, I think, has strengthened our hand in reaching out to people who would like to be part of a solution.
Are there Republicans outside of your committee that have committed support for your bill?
I haven't done that yet. I'm sticking with just the last 2 days we've been tied up with health care and the like, but I'm clearly interested in hearing what other Republicans and Democrats who are not on the committee have to suggest and offer and to become part of this effort so we can have a strong bill. What I'm determined to do is get a strong bill. Exactly what Barney said. We're going to end too big to fail. We're going to have systemic risk. We're going to deal with exotic instruments. We're going to have a strong consumer protection division, agency, bureau, however that works out. These are all going to be part of that bill that the president will have on his desk for a signature. And we welcome the participation of those who want to be a part of crafting this. That door has been open in the past, still is, but we're going to get a bill done.
Let me add one reason why I'm optimistic. A year ago, there was a lot of skepticism that we'd be able to do anything. When the first notion of the consumer agency came up, some of you wrote premature obituaries about it. I understood at the time it looked pessimistic. This has constantly been moving. We are not talking now about whether to deal with these things, whether to regulate derivatives much more, whether to have a consumer agency, but how. How is still an important set of questions, but it's very different than whether. And I, again, want to say, now that the American public comes to bear on this, and it's no longer an insider game, I think the product gets better in every specific.
What are going to be the major issues in conference?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet. There may not be any. We may be able to work.
What was your question?
What are the issues in conference?
Well, we don't know that yet. The bill hasn't passed.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. It's like, what do you ask me? Why don't you ask me what the weather's going to be like on Memorial Day? I'm not the Farmer's Almanac.
It's going to be a good day.
All right. No, the answer is we know what some of the potential issues will be, and the important ones. A lot of this is as to how you do the dissolution, how you do the systemic risk. These are important technical issues, but they're not ideological issues, and they are things that can be worked out. As to what the issues will be in conference, it depends on what's in the final bill.
The Journal is reporting that J.P. Morgan's going to get $1.4 billion tax break for its purchase of WAMU. Is that what Congress had in mind when it passed tax breaks, and does that make sense?
Well, you'd have to ask probably the tax writing committees. Remember, we don't have control over taxation, and Chris is actually
regretfully too.
Chris has been doing healthcare and financial reform. I've been doing financial reform. I know more about obscure financial things and less about everything else in the world than I used to. So I don't know. I don't even know which provision of the code that has to deal with it.
Senator Dodd, do you feel like you need to reach a deal with Shelby to get this bill to the Senate?
Not necessarily.
Or can you just hold all the Democrats and grab a few
Let's not get ahead of
votes?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. And again, I'm dealing now. We're out of committee. I'm dealing with 99 other senators, not just the 22 in the Banking Committee. And so there's a lot more people to work with and listen to on the subject matter, and I welcome that. Look forward to it.
Senator Dodd, Senator Shelby and now today Senator Gregg have said that too big to fail is not adequately addressed, and that appears to be emerging as the top Republican concern. There's so much uncertainty.
Well, any ideas they have to strengthen that, there's very little light between those of us who want to make sure that never happens again. So I'm very interested in hearing any ideas that would make that. The presumption is bankruptcy. The presumption is that if you end up in that situation, you're going into receivership. And that's anything we can do to strengthen that. I will open
Let me just add, by the way, one of the, we I think have addressed that as I believe the Senate bill does. And one of the things that we've gotten criticized for from the financial community is an amendment we adopted that empowers the administration, which comes from the constitutionality of the bankruptcy code, even to reduce secured creditors. And we have in there that even the secured creditors can be told that they're going to get a haircut. And the reason for all this is you want to put the investors on notice and the creditors. You want to make them very nervous and make them do the thinking before they invest. So, for example, as I said, we have this 10% reduction possibility for secured creditors. all these things reinforce each other.
What about those who call the $50 billion fund a permanent bailout fund?
We're dealing with those issues here. We think that it actually protects taxpayers so that they don't end up writing a check if you ever get to that situation. But that's a matter we're open to discussion with them.
And also, again, I want to stress again, you're talking about a situation when Hank Paulson said that he had two choices, either to pay nobody or pay everybody. So they tried paying nobody with Lehman Brothers, and he and Bernanke came to us and said, the world is about to end, so you have to, and the AIG, remember, the Fed, without any congressional input, decided to pay everybody. One of the things that's not in discussion at all is we are giving them the power to pick and choose. That's a very important piece, so that you begin with there will not be the kind of dilemma that Paulson said he faced, pay everybody, pay nobody. We begin by saying, look, the assumption is we're going to pay only those debts